racket sports require real-time coordination between your eyes, your hands, your feet, the brain. It also activates a prefrontal cortex, which is responsible for decision-making and attention.
People talk about doing like word puzzles like Sudoku for their brain health. And the reality is that that stuff hasn't really been shown to improve brain function, to prevent things like onset of dementia. Welcome to MD Longevity Lab, where we're playing the long game. This is a podcast for science meets real life with expert insights, practical tips, and real-world tools to not only live longer, but live better. Our aim is to radically change the way medicine is practiced and enable individuals to age gracefully, maintaining healthspan and vitality well into their later years. We're your hosts, Dr. Nisha and Dr. Vikas Patel, physicians, partners in life, and parents balancing work, wellness, and everything in between. Let's dive in. Welcome to the MD Longevity Lab podcast, where we are playing the long game. I am your host, Dr. Vikas Patel, and I'm joined by my co-host, Dr. Nisha Patel.
Hi, everyone. If you're someone who's thinking beyond just living longer and you actually want to live better, this episode is for you. Today, we're going to dive into how racket sports, yes, your weekend pickleball obsession, tennis obsession, can actually count. And it can do more than just keep you active. We're talking about real data on injury prevention, brain health, and longevity, and why picking up a racket might be one of the best things to make you live better.
Whether you're trying to ward off dementia, stay agile as you age, or simply get a fun social workout that delivers some serious health benefits, this conversation will definitely up your game. And for some of us competitive types, this is just in your genes, right?
I don't know who he's talking about. Anyway, part of the reason we're doing this episode, Vikas and I just got back from our 15-year wedding anniversary trip. We went to the Rafa Nadal Tennis Center in Mexico, and it was incredible.
Without our kids.
Yes, that was awesome too.
So yes, we did miss our kids, but let's be honest. We played 2 hours of outdoor tennis every day in 90-degree heat.
Yep, we were on clay courts, picture kind of like Roland Garros style, minus a crowd and some very sore quads. And I thought we were pretty fast, but then when I saw some of the video footage, I'm like, oh, okay, we're not as fast as the pros.
And when we weren't on the court, Nisha was busy collecting ping pong victories, if I recall.
And let's not forget the swag. I earned more resort gear in 1 week than most people do in a season. And not only that, I feel like I got to show off my tennis skills. Like both Vikas and I played tennis in high school, but in the last few years, we've refound our tennis game and we're consistently playing a couple days a week. I was afraid that I'd go in there and I wasn't going to be good enough. And as it turns out, I could probably be Rafa's hitting partner. That's how I perceived it.
That's what I saw too. That's absolutely what I saw. The pros there were like, oh my gosh, who is this lady?
No, I have tennis dysmorphic disorder. I think I'm way better than I actually am. It's okay.
And you did win like 4 t-shirts for our kids, and we got some sombreros. I don't even know how. We got like hats. The kids got hats. You hustled a lot of resort people to get us some swag. So props to you.
Yeah, I love free stuff.
But for the record, to be clear here, you're not going to be invited to be an instructor.
Well, if there are any pros listening or former pro tennis players, Serena, Rafa, Roger Federer, any of you need a hitting partner and you need some strategy tips for tennis, I'm available.
Just watch our reels on Instagram, but they would only be watching for you because I'm not as good.
No, Vikas destroys me 90% of the time. I think the only time I can get a set off of you in tennis is when you're hungover or you're coming off a night shift.
Yeah, fair. So all of this kind of reminded us that racket sports are more than just fun. They're actually one of the most effective longevity tools that we know of. So we're going to start off here with really what are the top 5 reasons racket sports are a longevity superpower, and dive into some of the science and some of the sweat.
Number 1, brain gains. Tennis is movement that rewires the mind. Racket sports require real-time coordination between your eyes, your hands, your feet, the brain. It also activates a prefrontal cortex, which is responsible for decision-making and attention. Your cerebellum, which is the back part of your brain, responsible for motor control and precision, and your hippocampus, which is responsible for your spatial reasoning.
Yeah, even things like table tennis improve brain function in older adults, including reaction time, cognitive flexibility, and that crucial visual spatial awareness so that, just when we're trying to navigate objects on the ground that we need, that might be in our path, that might cause us to fall, that we have the awareness to avoid them properly.
Basically, playing a racket sport is literally training your brain for potential roadblocks down the road, right?
Yeah, and we're going to get into some of that. People talk about doing like word puzzles like Sudoku for their brain health. And the reality is that stuff hasn't really been shown to improve brain function, to prevent things like onset of dementia. But because of all of the timing, spatial reasoning that has to occur in racket sports, that actually does make the brain work harder to stave off some of those potential pitfalls down the line of dementia. We look at some of the data behind some of the claims that we're going to make. And in 2021, using functional MRI, there's a study that was done looking really at the brain and what happens to the brain during just 10 weeks of table tennis training. And functional MRIs are pretty cool because they actually look at what parts of the brain light up based on what we're thinking about at the time. So what they ended up finding out is that not only is there benefit in the areas of the brain that allow us to do this spatial reasoning, there's also a boost to a chemical in the brain called brain-derived neurotrophic factor, as well as dopamine. And both of these chemicals are critical for neuroplasticity and neuroprotection of the brain.
So you just told us what BDNF stands for, the acronym, and I'm not going to try and repeat it. But it's a neurotrophin. It's a type of protein that supports the growth, survival, and plasticity of your neurons, which are your brain cells. And you can kind of think of it as the fertilizer of your brain because it helps your brain cells grow stronger and form new connections, especially in areas related to learning and memory.
So why is BDNF important? Well, number one, Nisha just mentioned neuroplasticity. What is that? Neuroplasticity is our ability to adapt and reorganize the circuitry of our brain. And BDNF enhances our brain's ability to do that. This is absolutely essential for us to learn new skills, to recover from injury, and also essential for us to develop long-term memories.
And I think all of us have a loved one. We've seen them suffer with dementia, and knowing that playing a racket sport, a couple times a week can slow this cognitive decline is so important.
This also plays a huge role in mood regulation. So low BDNF levels are very closely linked to the major mood disorders, including depression, anxiety, and stress-related disorders like PTSD. Most of the antidepressants, such as SSRIs, are thought to work in part by increasing BDNF levels over time. And most people who are doing sports that increase their BDNF levels tend to have lower rates of depression, anxiety.
And when it comes to inflammation, BDNF is going to help protect against neurodegenerative diseases like Alzheimer's, even Parkinson's, because it reduces inflammation, oxidative stress, and brain cell death.
So what are the things that decrease BDNF? Well, there's several. And the major things are chronic stress, sleep deprivation, sedentary behavior, and then poor diet. And especially that are high in those ultra processed foods that we had talked about in a previous episode.
All right. So now that we know what BDNF does, why don't we move to the next part of the brain in which racket sports really have a huge impact on? And that's your prefrontal cortex.
Yeah. So what does that do? Think of it as the CEO of the brain. It's the part of our brain that allows us to plan and make decisions, long-term goals, evaluating risks and consequences. It helps us to control our impulses and emotions. It helps us resist temptations and regulate our anger, delay gratification. It allows us to pay attention and focus and also have empathy for others, act socially appropriate. This is where our working memory comes from.
And your prefrontal cortex in humans have a more developed prefrontal cortex than any other species on the planet. And this allows for abstract thinking, self-awareness, complex language, and social cooperation. And that's a big part of what makes humans so special.
Exactly. So we'll also talk a little bit about the hippocampus because the hippocampus is a part of our brain that racket sports also affect. This is a part of our brain that is responsible for several things. Memory formation. This is where we convert short-term memory into long-term memory. Without a hippocampus, you won't be able to remember what we are saying in this podcast tomorrow. It also helps us with spatial navigation. And so this is one of those things that when we start to develop dementia, we start to lose this spatial awareness. And luckily, racket sports are integral in maintaining the health of our hippocampus.
Yeah. And why is our hippocampus so important for our health span? Shrinking of the hippocampus is one of the earliest signs of Alzheimer's disease and other forms of dementia. So chronic stress, poor sleep, inflammation, diets high in ultra-processed foods, which we talked about in previous episodes, can impair hippocampus function.
So just a little fun fact, the hippocampus is actually one of the few regions of the brain that can actually grow new neurons in adulthood, and that's called neurogenesis. And that is actually stimulated by exercise. It can be stimulated by certain types of fasting and then also nutrients. And you can start to see that if we start losing all of these key areas of the brain, this is what neurodegenerative conditions are, such as Alzheimer's. And part of the testing that we tend to do in patients is to figure out, do they have genetic risk for this, such as ApoE4 gene markers that can be a little bit increased risk for dementia.
Yep. And so for ApoE4 carriers, whether you have one copy of the gene or two, for patients that have two copies of the ApoE4 gene, it's not a sure thing that they're going to get dementia, but they are 8 to 12 times more likely to get dementia when it comes to average lifetime risk relative to the normal population. And these types of exercises, we counsel our patients that are E4 positive. Even if you haven't picked up a racket sport, we encourage them to start. So we summarize how racket sports have a huge impact on brain health. So now let's move to number 2.
Yeah, number 2 is our muscle fibers. And specifically, there's a couple types of muscle fibers. The fast twitch muscle fiber, which is really for the fast reactions. And then the slow twitch muscle fiber, which are used more for fatigue resistance and endurance tasks. So these slow twitch fibers are actually called type 1 fibers. And that's what we use when we're doing steady state cardio. So if somebody goes for a long walk or a jog, they're using those slow twitch fibers. The fast twitch fibers are the ones that are for speed and power. And that's what we need for sprinting, jumping, sudden direction changes, and specifically for preventing us from falling.
Yep. So if you guys listen to our muscle podcast, you might recall that we went over these different types of muscle groups. And after the age of 30, type 2, those fast twitch fibers decline faster at a rate of approximately 1 to 2% per year, meaning we lose up to 30% of our fast twitch muscles by the age of 60. And this leads to slower reaction times, decreased agility, and ultimately falls. And that's where racket sports comes into play.
Racket sports are demanding not only in forward, backward movements, but also lateral movements. They create unpredictable reactive footwork patterns in response to where our opponent is and where they're sending the ball. And they're incorporating like plyometric style explosiveness through serves and return of serves the same way that we might practice with the plyometrics box, jumping up and down in different movement patterns.
Yeah, so racket sports really fuel these type 2 fibers, which are so crucial for aging well.
Yeah, they're building neuromuscular coordination. And ultimately, that's what's preventing the age-related decline that we frequently see with our populations.
And, we've talked about the importance of resistance training as we get older, but reactive sports are uniquely effective at preserving these fast twitch muscle fibers as well. So it's really crucial for independence and safety in older age. So if you see anyone on the pickleball court or tennis court, you can give them a high five and be like, you have such huge fast twitch muscle fibers.
Yeah, just a little side note. Falls are the number one cause of injury-related death in adults over 65. And nearly all falls that we see are related to this loss of type 2 muscle fibers where you're not able to respond to uneven pavement or a sidewalk that is uneven. And so that's exactly where these racket sports are so beneficial for us.
So, number one, we talked about how racket sports are so important for our brain health. Number two, it increases our fast twitch muscle fibers. Number three, let's get into that.
3, racket sports dramatically reduce all-cause mortality. Yes, even compared to things like running. In a study out of British Journal of Sports Medicine in 2016 that looked at over 80,000 people and over a span of 9 years, they found that racket sports had the highest reduction in all-cause mortality, and it was a 47% reduction. It also had a 56% reduction in just cardiovascular mortality. This outperformed walking, swimming, cycling, and running.
And why do we think this is?
It's likely due to a combined effect, right? So racket sports does so many different things for us. It gives us basically HIIT training, right? High intensity interval like training where you're stopped for a few seconds and then all of a sudden the point starts and you're go, go, go. And then you get to rest again.
I never rest.
I know you're just jogging in place the whole time.
I am.
We can all strive to be like Nisha. There is a cognitive engagement, right? Because we have to spatially be aware. There's a coordination engagement where we can't be tripping over our own feet. All forms of exercise are positively correlated with stress reduction. And then probably the last thing here is that it's a social sport. You don't play racket sports by yourself, and there is a forced social interaction component that comes with it. And we also know that there are numerous studies that prove social interaction is good for our brain health.
And if you listen to our VO2 max episode, remember VO2 max is the strongest modifiable predictor of all-cause mortality. So while endurance training improves your VO2 max, racket sports offers that HIIT-like effect that boosts your cardiovascular fitness and your brain function.
Yeah, scientists and doctors talk about METs, metabolic equivalents, and basically a 1 MET increase in VO2 max reduces mortality risk by 10 to 15%. And so that's what you're doing when you're doing these short bursts of explosive movements. You're working on that top end of your cardiorespiratory fitness, which is increasing the amount of METs that your body's capable of doing work with.
Yeah, in the clinical setting, we encourage our patients to improve their VO2 max and cognitive agility through racket sports. It's a 2-for-1 strategy.
Definitely. Number 4. So we just talked about all-cause mortality. I had just kind of referred to this, but number 4, racket sports provide a built-in social connection. And there is a definite connection between our brain, our heart, and mood disorder resilience.
Yeah, racket sports involve opponents, friends, partners, banter, laughter, all of which build social bonding and reduce loneliness. I know I look forward to my group tennis classes, and that has come to be one of the highlights of my week.
Yeah, loneliness is a huge problem as we age. Loneliness actually has been studied and it increases mortality by 29% and compared to people who don't think of themselves as lonely. And loneliness also is an independent risk for cognitive decline. It increases cognitive decline by 40%. And so this social exercise, it's doing multiple things for us in multiple ways. It increases our heart rate variability. It improves our mood, provides us with stress resilience. It improves executive functioning in older adults. So these benefits compound when you're physically exerting yourself and having an emotional connection with others around you.
Yeah. So for patients with social isolation, depression, or cognitive decline, suggest doubles tennis, or if they're not able to play tennis, pickleball. Pickleball was one of those sports that was literally designed for old people to stay moving. But now it's become a professional sport, which is amazing. So it's not just a hobby. And I think anyone can play a racket sport.
Yeah, that gets us to number 5.
So we talked about how racket sports improve brain health, number one. Number two, it improves fast twitch muscle fibers, right, which help prevent falls. Number three, they reduce your risk of all-cause mortality. Number four, it's built-in social connection. And number five, tell us about number five.
Number 5 is basically they're fun. And because they're fun, it's easy for long-term adherence. How many times have we heard patients, or not just patients, everyone, right? Like it's January 1st and you make that New Year's resolution, I'm going to go to the gym. How many people come the following January 1st have been going to the gym regularly, right? Things that are more fun are easier to adhere to. And that's really why racket sports are a winner here. Whether it is pickleball, ping pong, paddle, tennis, all of these things are fun and competitive. They're social. There is a skill to learn. And, until you're Rafa Nadal, you can keep working on your skill, right? So you're never going to become an expert and not be able to get better.
And one thing that we love about it as a family, it's intergenerational. So we can play with our kids. And it's a sport where men and women, you and I have played a pickup basketball game and like you accidentally bump me and I go flying. Whereas with tennis, it's a pretty even playing field, even if you're sized up differently. Like our daughter can still hit and keep a consistent rally with her older brothers.
Absolutely. This is all why tennis or racket sports in general have a high consistency over time and why they actually lead to these long-term better health outcomes. We usually give our patients a prescription of this is the amount of exercise that they need to do. But when you really look at something like tennis, if we say a patient's going to play even 30 minutes of tennis twice a week, we know baked into that they're going to have a certain VO2 max improvement, that their body becomes more insulin sensitive to regulate their blood sugar, that they end up having a better mood, better mental clarity, and truly they just enjoy better cognitive performance.
Yeah.
All right. I just want to summarize a few things about who really benefits the most from racket sports. So some of the things that we had touched on: anybody who's carrying a genetic risk, if dementia runs in your family, if you know that you are an ApoE4 carrier, then racket sports are very important. Anybody who has already noticed that they have some mild cognitive decline, they would benefit because this is a perfect way to exercise numerous parts of your brain all at the same time, which is really what our brain enjoys to stay healthy.
Yep. And other people that would benefit from racket sports are people that are socially isolated or struggling with exercise motivation. And I think we all can benefit in the VO2 max department, and because it will improve. And I think racket sports help all of us in the VO2 max department as well.
Yeah, also patients who have any signs of early metabolic syndrome, impaired glucose tolerance, increased visceral fat, those are all patients that can benefit. And then basically anybody who's noticed that maybe they're having a little bit of balance issue, this is a perfect way to start to work on balance without doing just dedicated exercise for it.
Mm-hmm. So you do not need clay courts in Mexico, but it does help when the recovery smoothie is a margarita.
Yes, that's one motivation. What you do need is a commitment to movement, connection, and cognitive protection. And so pick your racket sport. And I don't think there's any way to really go wrong with it because there are so many benefits here.
And Rafa, if you're listening, if you need two overachieving mid-40 wannabes to hit with, we're already stretching.
All right. That's right, Rafa. if you're listening. Thank you again for joining us for MD Longevity Labs, playing the long game. Please visit our website at mdlongevitylab.com and feel free to reach out to us on social media. We're happy to field any questions and take suggestions for future episodes.
Yeah. And if you have a loved one, a friend that loves racket sports, be sure to share this episode with them so they can
potentially beat Nisha. Potentially. Yes, Rafa. Please reach out to my wife. She's waiting. Please reach out to us if you guys have any questions. We are happy to field any of those questions and take suggestions. Also, please share this episode with anybody who loves racket sports or might want to get into them. There are plenty of benefits.
Yeah, we've always been racket sport players. We have a table tennis. We have a ping pong table in our basement. Our kids love tennis and racket sports. But it's been so much more fun to know that it's not only fun for us, but it's benefiting our health as well.
Yeah, and we're teaching our kids a lifelong sport. It's very difficult to play things like football or soccer into your late age, but racket sports are pretty easy to keep up with. Our body doesn't have nearly the amount of wear and tear from racket sports as it does from other sports that people enjoy.
Yep. So in the meantime, keep playing the long game and we'll see you guys next time.
Take care. Thank you for playing the long game with MD Longevity Lab. You can visit us at www.mdlongevitylab.com to learn more about how we can support you on your journey. Stay connected with us on social media at MD Longevity Lab for tips, updates, and behind-the-scenes insights. If you enjoyed today's episode, we'd love it if you subscribed, left us a rating, or shared it with someone you know who's also playing the long game. Thanks for listening. We'll see you next time.